so you've worked on the owner side for quite some time, Tim.
Yes.
And from projects, I love that you've got some span from the small jobs to the very large jobs. What is something that surprises you about the consistency and the challenges you see from the small to the big? Like, what's something that you always find?
It's the people. The hard part about, I tell my project managers, it doesn't matter what the project is. The projects are, they're not, but I say they're all the same. If you have a new construction out of the ground, the materials are different, blah, blah, blah. You got to go your footings and your foundations and your slab and your framing. Once you know that, it's the same, but the people are always different, and the people can sometimes be very, very challenging. It could be a really small project, that's the case, or a very large project. And that's what's consistent. Higher ed and healthcare, which I've done a lot of higher ed. I've done quite a bit of healthcare. There can be some people they're just challenging. They're demanding. They're intelligent. And you put it together, it can make for long days. So.
Yeah, Tim, you're not joking. I've worked some 18-hour construction days with challenging people. What you described is like, high demanding people, smart people. When those two things blend together, it typically makes for a longer workday for sure.
Exactly. And I think over the years, I remember when I was working I worked for a company called Suffolk out here in Boston, and our client was in Philadelphia, and his style of leadership is not mine. But the difficulty that I had was sometimes you got to morph your personality and leadership to that client. And his was I won't use the word mean, but I guess I will use that word. He came across in the meetings as very aggressive, and he wanted me to be the same way. And I'm not, but I can pretend. So when he was there, I pretend, but when he wasn't there, I didn't do it that way. And everybody got wind of it after a while. But again, it's just morphing yourself to that situation so that he feels respected, as a leader of the team, and I do what I got to do to make the project successful.
Welcome to the EBFC Show, the easier, better for construction podcast. I'm your host, Felipe Engineer Manriquez. This show is all about the business of construction.
Today's episode is sponsored by
Bosch Refine My Site is a cloud-based construction collaboration platform that applies lean principles to enable your entire team to plan, communicate, and execute in real time. It's the digital tool that works in tandem with your last planner system process and puts it all together in one simple, collaborative ecosystem. This easy-to-use platform is available in English, German, Spanish, Portuguese, and French, and can be used on desktops, tablets, and mobile devices. According to Spencer Easton, scheduling manager at Oakland Construction,
Refine My Site, in my opinion, is the best, leanest tool on the market for last planner systems.
Here's what our users have to say. We've looked at 3 other digital scheduling platforms, and none compare to the straightforward approach Refine My Site takes. From milestone planning all the way down to daily tasks, this program gives every general contractor and their trade partners meaningful collaboration, accountability, and KPIs. Register today to try Refine My Site for free for 60 days.
Today's show is also sponsored by the Lean Construction Institute. LCI is working to lead the building industry in transforming its practices and culture. Its vision is to create a healthy and thriving industry that delivers outstanding project outcomes every time for everyone. Check the show notes for more information. Now, to the show. Welcome to the show, Team Singleton. Tim, I am honored to be a mutual friend of yours with Jenny Han, the one, the only, the special Jenny Han. It's so cool to have you on the show. I've gotten to see you speak at LCI Congress last year, and I know that you're a good talker like myself. You're quick on your feet, but the more impressive thing is that you show up with a smile and a great attitude for work every day. And even when we started the show, like as Tim was getting on, he's one of the few guests that actually cares how the audience experiences. So for those of you watching on YouTube, I just want you to know that Tim put in the extra effort to appear just perfect on the show.
Tim, we're going to have your full description and ways to contact you in the description notes below, ladies and gentlemen. So as always, as you're scrolling down to learn more about Tim and his background, go ahead and tap that like button and share the show with a friend, anyone who needs to hear more about the owner's experience in construction. This would be a great show for them. So do share, tap that like button, and of course, comment on the show. Tim wants to hear what you're thinking and keep the conversation going. Tim, tell the good people of the EBFC show a touch about yourself.
I'll tell you a little bit. I've been on the owner side for getting old, like 20 years. I actually started as a laborer, part-time, when I was an undergrad. A friend of my father's gave me a part-time job, and I discovered as a laborer that I was studying to be a cartographer, and I discovered I was making more money as a laborer than I would as I graduated to be a cartographer. And at graduation, he asked me if I wanted to go to a job on Martha's Vineyard to help as kind of a not union, but as a apprentice carpenter kind of thing. And I said yes, and that got me on my way. I wasn't getting rich, but I was definitely making more money than I would as a cartographer. So I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? Let's stick with it. So I did, and I earned a lot because the company that I worked for, general contractor, they had laborers and contractors that did scope on projects that they didn't bid out. So any project that I did, I could be doing anything. I could be pouring concrete, form work. I could be laboring, cleaning up. I could be doing roofs, framing, you name it. If that scope was missing out of a buyout, I was doing it. And over, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I just learned a lot. Either by saying, yes, I could do that when I had no idea how to do it, but I go figure it out. Or if I, with somebody that knew how to do it and they would show me, but I just learned all these trades. I learned enough to be dangerous. So that kind of rolled around, became an assistant superintendent. But I knew that it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And I always would see, the owners on site, and I was like, wow, what's up with that? And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I got the opportunity to get my MBA at Eisenberg School of Management. The dean of the School of Management, we're still very good friends. He was friends with a company called FRM on the owner side at Higher Eds. That's how this owners thing started. In between there, I've worked on the contractor side as well, but it's almost always been on the owner side. And it's just morphed to different projects that I've done, different personalities, working in Massachusetts, New York City, Philadelphia. Now I'm in Boston now. All these different cultures and unions and personalities, it's all come together. And I think I just had so many experiences. I feel like, I don't know everything, but problems come up now. I've already done it. And I was like, people have an issue. They come to me now. Hey, what am I going to do? I was like, oh yeah, back in blah, blah. I got tons of stories. Yeah. And there's so many things I've encountered. And it makes me, powerful is the word, I think. It makes me strong. So I think that I do well just from my experiences.
No, I love that. Tim, your experience is priceless. And like I said, people, if you ever get a chance, if you see Tim's name on any kind of presentation, you better sign up and go see him and go listen to him, because you're going to learn a lot. Tim, I want to start right in with, sharing a story. You've been on big projects, small projects, particularly in education and healthcare, and so many mutual friends of ours love lean construction. There's a lot of lean in healthcare in particular, both on the patient care, primary responder side, as well as in the capital construction side. I'd love for you to share a story about a challenge you had on a project that you would consider lean, and make sure you tell me why you think it was lean. And then, what, because I know you're going to have your own version. See, he's already, if you're watching on YouTube, Tim's already laughing because he knows that word is trigger, especially in the Northeastern United States. Lean can sometimes be seen as equivalent to the F word, just for people that don't know.
Yeah. So the recent project that I finished is a science project, and again in Massachusetts, it's a dirty word sometimes. And you kind of gotta step back from that word. Sometimes don't use it. You can do it without saying it. So this project, when I got hired by this college, and if you probably figure it out what I'm talking about, that's okay. When I first got there, the contractor and designer were already on board, but the design had just started. So see them at risk, and it was just this. from word go. We got a designer that's trying to build Taj Mahal, and we hired him because we want Taj Mahal, but we can't afford it. And the contractor is like, we want everything now so we can get going on this. And it was, the contracts weren't signed, the scope, the programming wasn't set, nothing was done. So you want to bring those lean tools into the process. The first thing I said is, what we need is a big room, not necessarily a big room, but the concept of it. Yeah. So we're all together and talking, and it's a fight. So we gave them a building. The contractor comes in, and I said, I want to build a big room. And did they do that? Halfway. So, the project exec and the super, they're in offices off in the corner, the safety person's over in another corner there. The junior folks, they're in the big room. So we kind of halfway got it. So, but you gotta fight that resistance. You just gotta keep doing it. But as the process went along, the architect, we have them on site, we put them in the big room. So they'd come on site and we're all together. It took us probably a year for the hostility to settle down. And I think the concept of that big room, we did post sessions, last planner, that kind of thing too. You just get all these efforts to get together. And we did a lot of things that were, I call them social, where we'd go out, everybody go out for dinner, drop a whole lot of money. But it was worth it, so we could settle things down and just create that team environment so that folks understand that, is it IPD? No, I call it light because people don't like that contract in Massachusetts, but the concept of it, we got to be a team. And we moved from there. It ended up being a really, really cool project. We had tons of issues, major issues, $1 million issues, but we worked through them as a team because we weren't pointing fingers, we were working as a team. And I think it's just experiences over time where, I think, when I was younger, I think that maybe, when these things weren't going well, I might have put my fist on the table and say, this is how we're doing it, blah, 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 blah. And some of my bosses are like that, but I knew that's not the way to go. We got to come in, we got to collaborate, we got to respect, we got to listen, and they're all tools, and you just got to keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. And eventually the team comes together, and it ends up being fun. You enjoy your job, and you end up managing the expectations of the clients. So when they walked in the door, I say this a lot, when the client walks in the door, they're smiling because you were a good team, including the client. So you respect them, you understand them, you manage them, you hear them, you hear their expectations, and you manage their expectations. So when you get to that end result and they walk in the door, they go, wow, this is what I wanted.
What I like about that story so much, Tim, is that it shows how, and I can brag for you because you can't brag for yourself. You're a savvy client. You knew that when you assessed it right away, like, this just doesn't quite feel right. What can we do? So you thought, let me go to big room and create that environment. And then that by itself wasn't the panacea that got you what you wanted. It was the consistent breaking bread multiple times. How many times do you think you had to eat as a group before they started to melt a little bit and jive together?
Like I said, it took at least a year. I think some folks in the team got it right away, but there were a few. They might not ever got it, but it's okay. But you can manage that. But we probably had 3 really good outings, for a meal with the majority of the team. And you go, a nice dinner and maybe a few drinks, whatever it might be. So people are relaxed. And even, when I'm there and I'm talking to an APM or a junior super, they know that they can talk to me, I'm a person, versus, there's a good one is, those junior folks, they're at a point where, they're going to make mistakes. And so, but we got a team now, but now they know they can go, hey, you know what? I screwed something up. And they know that they're not going to get yelled at. They might get yelled at. But the point is that I made a mistake. So my response isn't what the hell are you thinking? My response is, how are we going to take care of it? And that's the whole gist of the energy you want to have. So, number one, when people make mistakes, they actually tell you because they're not afraid to. So 6 months from now, you don't find out that, holy crap, that was a mistake and he didn't tell us. And now we're really in deep trouble. That concept of the team, that just morphs from those meetings where just the energy, it's smooth, and anybody can approach me and do the same thing here. Any of my junior PMs, the doors open, they can come and start talking. one of the things I talk way too much, but one of the things I want to be able to do is, if I'm working, and I can't do it right now, but if I'm talking to doing something at work and a junior PM comes in, I can always stop what I'm doing and listen. And that's that respect for people kind of feeling. And it's irritating for me sometimes, like, oh, I'm doing, oh man, I got to stop. But inward, I'm saying that, but outward, I'm saying, oh yeah, come on, let's talk. And that's really, it's key. I shouldn't have said that because they're going to see it.
No, it's all good. But it shows like you're flexing and you're putting, I think two things coming out there, Tim, is that one, you've got this project first thinking. It's not like Tim Singleton's project, win or die, right? You're thinking this job, this has a point, this has a purpose, and you're bringing that philosophy to the rest of the team. It's infectious, Tim. I'm thinking I totally disagree with you. You're wrong. You're wrong, Tim. You got to talk more. I think people need to hear you talking more. This might be the only time you hear it, Tim, today. So luckily for you, it's being recorded.
First of all, I'm only wrong once a week, right? And it is Friday. I haven't been wrong yet, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so you got time. So I'm saying you need to talk more. It shows your philosophy and your thinking, because thinking's invisible. And that approach of, bringing somebody in, getting interrupted, as we get up in our careers, and you and I, Tim, I think we're probably close to the same age. We're not going to spoil everybody and let them know how old we are, but yeah, after a while we start our value becomes helping others grow and mentoring other people, and it becomes less about what we ourselves just do as a value adder. The value add is like in developing the other people. It's way more powerful. That's a force multiplier. So I absolutely love that tale. Now, to follow on with that, because you mentioned like last planner system, setting up a big room and some of these lean tools, what would you say in your experiences, especially being on the owner side, like what makes you gravitate towards adopting some of those methods?
I think that because they're defined, like conditions of satisfaction or whatever, it's all about the client walking. I said it earlier. It's all about the client walking in the door and being happy. This is what I wanted, and how you get there. It's from the pre-design into the design. Are you a team? That's it. So the value, the definition of conditions of satisfaction, value. What are you going to get out of this project? The value is what the client says. It's like, this is what I wanted. Is it schedule, budget? Probably not. Is it what I wanted? Is this the design, the program that I wanted? And then, but you get that from the initial phases of the project as a team. You come in, you get along. If see him at risk, the contractor knows his fee. It's pretty much set. Okay, put that aside. Let's function as a team. The designer, same thing. Your fee is pretty much set as long as everything was smooth. Let's function as a team and get along, understand what the client thinks they want, hear them, make sure they know that you've heard them, and then discuss. Maybe if that program isn't or expectations aren't quite right, it's a conversation. So before you start design, as your team is talking, you're understanding, you're managing, you're saying you wanted this, but I think you want this. Let's talk about it. And you're understanding it, they're understanding it, and you move into design. And from that understanding, you hopefully end up with a good project, and they walk in the door and they're smiling.
Oh, I love that. They're smiling. Who would you say, Tim, has been a good positive influence on you for deeper, further, more lean adoption? If you had to name names, who would you name?
Oh, probably Nick Massey and Melissa McGowan from Haley and Aldridge. Yeah, I'll give them credit. But I think that the biggest credit, when I go to congresses, I've been to 4, and it's really funny because I go and I hear the same thing over and over and over again. But the strength of it is I hear the same thing over and over and over again. So when I first go there, I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, that sounds good. Whatever. I didn't quite get it. And the next year you go again and you hear not everything, but a lot of the things you hear are kind of the same or similar, and it just strengthens in your head because you're hearing it over and over again. And over the years, you start to use those concepts and tools, and you understand them, and it makes you stronger, and it makes you it allows you to create that stronger team. And even with the contract types that are here, we can still take those, even if it was a GC contract, it's harder, but you can still to some degree take those tools and morph it into a team.
Yeah, I love that team focus, and people,
Tim's reinforcing what we've seen in the literature as far as construction research. From the client's perspective, the team is one of the most important things and the single greatest factor when they're evaluating who's going to build my project, who are we going to be hanging out with for the next couple of years. It is absolutely always the team. Team is super important. So on that note, Tim, like when you're evaluating team members, especially in interviews, what are some of the things that you're looking at, or that you're talking to your staff? Because it's typically not just Tim and everybody else, right? It's typically an owner, especially in the large capital construction projects. It's like a committee of people. I was in an interview recently, Tim, and I feel like it was 3-1. For every one person we brought to the interview, the owner had 3 people. So
I think that's actually key. So when we do interviews, the client, I mean, not me, the client. I mean, the client. If you're building I don't know, an art building, or a building for art, the people that run that building, they need to be at that interview because they need to connect with the designer and the contractor. And I force that. That's the key to that is they come in, and I do this, and it's a secret, but I'll say it anyway. So when someone's speaking, I always, not always, most of the time, I will look at the other people in the room, especially the client. So if you're the contractor and you're saying, blah, 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 we do this, I look at the client and see their reaction. And I want to make sure that there's a connection or not. And I want the client to be speaking, ask questions. But the really important factor is that when the client, and sometimes it's a woman, and I'll just be blunt, and sometimes there's not a respect for that. And I watch when the woman is speaking, what the reaction from the people on whoever's being interviewed, especially even when they're women, the people that are being interviewed, it happens a lot that you see. I'm being half joking, but you kind of get a reaction sometimes. Oh, listen, little woman, I got this. Let me explain it to you. A lack of respect. And when they do that, they're not getting the job. And it happens more than you think. If you pay attention to it, that lack of respect for the client, some people just don't get it. And when they don't get it, you can guarantee you're going to have a bad project, because you're going to have a unhappy client from the start, because they're not going to be respected. They're not going to be listened to. Their expectations aren't going to be managed because they're not respected. So that's
a deal breaker. Yeah. I like that, Tim. It's a deal breaker. I'm totally on the same page as you. And I think we're both on the high emotional intelligence spectrum, because when I'm in interviews, I almost never look at the people talking to. I'm looking at the other people and seeing how they're reacting to what they're hearing, what they're seeing. Yeah. It's fascinating. So like, there you go.
You know what's really cool? What I do sometimes is just a table, and the selection panels on one side, and the contractor or designer, they all sit on the other side. I sit on the same side as the people that are interviewing. I've done that regularly, and it's or on the end of the table, so I can see even more faces. But you always you got to be in a point where the contractor, they got to show. They've been practicing. They're going to say this. They're going to say that. It says they do a good job or they don't. But it's not as relevant as the faces and expressions and the energy you're going to get from the people on your side of the table.
Oh, those are great insights, Tim. I appreciate you lifting the veil so we can see into the behind the scenes of like what the selection is. And even though, Tim, don't worry, even though we're telling people and they're going to watch this, they'll still mess it up, because you can't fake that type of stuff. Like, you either really respect people or you don't. You can't pretend to respect someone. It will not come across in a genuine way. Tim is going to bust you. You're going to not win the job.
So you guys, I have so many stories, but it's really funny because, we're very big on diversity. We expect when you, other than counting percentages, we're past that, but we expect that when you have a team, your team has some diversity. And when I say diversity, I'm not talking color of skin or sex. I'm talking about the diversity of their life experiences. That gives you the colors and the sex. But we want to see that in all of your teams. And a lot of companies fake it. So they'll bring somebody to interview because they're lacking that diversity. And that's worse than not having diversity, because I will call you out. And it happens that they'll come and that person won't have anything to say because they're not really part of the team. And it's apparent right away. And I will say more than once, I've actually called the person out and said, Jane Smith, what do you do? And silence, because they're like, because they're faking it. It's real. It's real or it's not.
Right.
And faking it, we're gonna know.
Absolutely. Tim's gonna find you out. He's got the experience, people. Don't try to play. Don't play, contractors. Be prepared. Come real. Bring the real people. They're gonna do it. And it's gonna be a fit or it's not gonna be a fit. And that's we want win-win solutions, right, Tim?
Exactly.
Now, speaking of win-win solutions, I want to ask you now, projects that you consider just dashingly successful. What are some of the factors, like the importance of the team, like team cohesiveness, or just are they just doing really well and staying on budget and schedule? What are like the critical things that you see where you're just like, wow, this team just knocked it out the park? Like, and what was it that made it, that for you?
It's a good question. I think that one of the factors, I kind of said it earlier, is when the team's successful, is all the parties are involved and are open. Like, again, the APMs and the junior supers, and maybe even if the CM has a laborer on site, we're all involved and we all know each other. We know each other's names, and we all have the ability to talk. So if I walk the site and I do a Gemba, whatever, and I know somebody's on site, they can come up to me and, hey, Tim, how you doing? I can say, hey, Fred, what are you doing there? It's that concept of, I guess, camaraderie, I guess, and respect. Respect is great. Is it the word respect? I think it's huge. And you show that to the trades people on your project, your APMs. I think when it all comes together, people work better, they'll give you a better product, they'll work harder, they're happier. It all comes together, and in the end, you got a better product.
I love that. Your culture building, Tim, with that type of engagement, going walking the job. It's not all clients will actually take the time to walk their projects. And then, for those that do, you can count on one hand that actually talk to the people. Now, disclaimer, clients, if you're listening, if you're out there redirecting work because you think you know better, I'm going to be the first person to respectfully guide you back to the trailer and show you how to do a proper job walk. Because, and I know why you're laughing, Tim, because you've probably had a little heavy hand at times, or you at least know some stories, don't you?
It's the exact opposite. So when the client goes there and they think, first of all, the client can't give direction, so it screws things up. But it's the opposite. When you go there, and I've done this, because I have a house and I'm always doing working on it. Sometimes I'm joking, sometimes it's serious. I'll see somebody doing something that I don't know how to do it, or maybe I do, but I go there and say, hey, what are you doing? And I'll stand there and I'll watch. And he's like, what are you doing? What do you want? I'm like, I'm just watching. I'm learning. And when you say that, all of a sudden they get a pride, and it's really cool because I do learn. Like, especially I was watching last time, I think it was floor tile. The guy was putting down some ceramic tile, but he was cutting tile. I can do it, but I can make a mess. So I'm like, yeah, let's watch this guy and see how he's doing. And he's like, yeah. And he's like giving me pointers, and like it's kind of cool. And he's motivated. I'm motivated. I'm learning something. Now I can go home and do it myself. But you go the other way, it's doesn't go well. Tradesman knows his trade. You don't let him go.
Perfect. I love that. There's things that I can't do, Tim. I know my limitations. I've tried to do certain things, like even just running the Ethernet that's powering my computer right now. That took me 6 months. And I called electricians and I couldn't get anybody at the time. It was like the job was too small. So I had to like do it myself. And it involved a camera almost breaking into a bathtub. I mean, there are lots of things happen to get that wire to run in between walls. But when I do have contractors over, I often think, first, I never tell them that I'm a contractor, because I don't want it to get weird. And especially as like, it's already bad enough, like, because my last name is engineer. So like they already make a bunch of assumptions about, who is this guy with his last name engineer? I'll admit to being an electrical engineer because that's what I studied. And I might say that because I just want to put people at ease. Like, I don't want to create additional pressure when they're trying to do something. I like your approach, though, being just curious and saying, oh, I want to learn. I don't know how to do this. Like I saw a guy putting fence posts in. We had some fences blow over and some high wind, and we got that done. And it was just like, they do things that I never would have thought, like just the ingenuity, creativity. Like you said, they know their craft. when you do it day in and day out, you get really good at it. So I think that's super cool. I want to go back to, you're building that culture. How do you mentor people on your staff to do the same thing? Like, do you do it like just by them hanging out with you, or do you intentionally say like, I want to talk about this with you, or do you share stories? What's your go-to way to do that?
To my PMs,
Yes.
I tell them, you know what? If you're a project manager and you sit at your desk all the time, you're probably not that good, and you should spend time on the site. But I tell them, when you spend time on the site, go by yourself. Go put your hard hat on, shoes on, and you just walk around. Don't walk with other people, because they're going to show you stuff that they want to show you. Just walk around regularly. Perhaps even do the same route so you see the progress of something regularly. So when you know how to do it, but you know what's going on your site. That's just huge. It makes you stronger. And I think some of my project managers, some of them were tradespersons. Some of them have no experience in construction. Some of them are architects that have never been in the field, and that makes them weak. And to get rid of that weakness, spend time on the field, see what's going on. And again, it's the same thing over and over again. If you're building labs or renovating labs in our school, it's the same thing over and over again. See it. And next thing you know, you're strong and you're smart. You know what's going on. And that's just huge. And I've been on projects where project managers have been in front of the computer all the time. And I've been in a situation where those PMs, when something blows up, it blows up bad because they don't know what's going on, and they can't defend the owner because they're not on the site. They're not strong.
Man, that is killer good advice, Tim. I can't add anything to that. That's perfect. I must let people marinate in that. This is the time in the show where you want to hit that rewind, and listen to Tim say that again. And I would say, if you're a general contractor or tradesperson, or you're managing crews or leading people, do the same thing. Go walk the job yourself, by yourself, and understand the flow of the job and how things are going together. It's going to make you so much stronger. I completely agree, Tim. It's one of the first things that I do when I go visit project teams. I often will say, let's go walk. And I don't let them take me on the path, the prefix path. I'm like, let's go this way. And they'll have to hear why we can't go that way or what we do. And I'll still look. Nothing's going to stop me from seeing what's going on.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Now, you've got something that a lot of people don't understand, Tim, especially on big complex jobs. And I'm saying, let me just disclaimer out there. I would consider, for most of the United States, a job is big over 10 million. Now, I know we've got like the E&R 100 companies where they don't consider jobs large until they're at the $500 million mark. But for the everyday person listening to the show, who are on projects of various different sizes, there's risk involved in what we do. And so I'd love to hear from an owner's perspective, Tim, piggybacking on walking your job to understand how it's going together. How do you make risks known to the team? And then what do you do to navigate the challenges associated with those risks?
So I think you're asking if something's going to go bad, and I know it's coming. I guess a couple of things. On the owner side, it's really important to be fair. Let me back up. I think it's important for the owner, the PMs on the owner side, to understand that the contractor, the designer, the reason why they're here, because they want to make money. That's why they're here. They might enjoy the job. They might be friends with you. You might not be, but whatever it is. But the reason why they're here is to make money. So when you have a problem and it blows up, you got to be fair. If the contract says, I can really stick it to this contract because it says it in the contract. Okay, but is it fair? Is it going to put them out of business? Is it kind of 50-50 or now it's 49-51? Just be fair, and they'll respect you by you respecting them, and go from there. There's a story that there's a project that was just recent where there was a stair system that was redesigned, and the subcontractor couldn't do it, so he pulled out. So now what does that mean? The CMA risk, he's stuck with it. He's got to find somebody else, not my problem. But his contingency is almost gone. And his CMA risk, GMP contingency is almost gone. So what do? You got to be fair. We designed it. We put him in a situation. Could he have managed it better? Maybe, but we could have been a better owner too. We probably shouldn't have changed the design as drastic as we did. So we're working that out. So again, you just gotta work as a team, be fair, understand why everybody's here. We're here because we want a product. We want value. You're here as a contractor because you're here to make money. You're a designer. You're here because you want to make money. You want portfolio pictures too, but that kind of stuff. But you're here. You want, that's it. And you just, once you understand that, it's a respect thing, and you go from there.
Tim, you're like my owner hero now, because you said, and he didn't even hesitate, people. If you're listening to the show a second time, I'm going to listen to this one like 5 times, Tim. It's like, it's okay to make profit. Did you hear that, contractors? The owner is telling you it's okay to make profit.
So let me back up on that. So if you think I'm being a good guy there, I'm the bad guy in this one. So here in Massachusetts, and I'll be blunt again, the CMA risks, you submit your proposal and it's 2% fee, and we know your fee is not 2%. It's probably 7%. It's if you were making 2%, you wouldn't do construction. You'd put your money in anywhere else, you'd make more than 2%. You can put it in a savings account in the bank and you're making almost that doing nothing. So we know that's not the case. But I don't know why. I do know why. But we want you to be honest with us too. So we have all these processes so we can kind of dig into how much you're making to make sure that, I use this word hose. I hate getting hosed. I want to make sure that we're not getting hosed, but the reverse is true. So I know that you need to make 5, 6, 7%. Just say it. But contractors don't. They say 2, and then they stick the money other places. And they kind of hide it, thinking they're getting away with it, but they're not. They're just being dishonest. Be honest. And how do we fix that? Like in Massachusetts, it's been a struggle for several years, and we've got, we can audit, and we've got some other tools that we can use, that we do use. But I think it's the same thing as a contractor respecting your owner. I would appreciate it if you say, hey Tim, you know what? We're making 6%, but you know what? If you look at our indirect costs, our general liability, we had 2% there before, but it's actually only 1.5. Or SubGuard, SubGuard is, I'm not sure if it's all over the country, but here we use SubGuard instead of a bond, and SubGuard is basically a bond that's applied by the contractor. It's a profit center. So instead of 1.5%, we're going to tell you it's 0.5 or 0.75. That's the break even. But the balance of that is in our fee that we're telling you is 5 or 6%. I don't know why contractors can't just do that. It'd be so nice. So the respect goes both ways.
It does, and people listening. I mean, Tim just absolutely he went into your closet and looked right into your underwear drawer, and he can see everything. So.
Well, the thing, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been on the contractor side, and so I know these things, and I think a lot of owners don't. So when you say to that contractor, I'm going to give you 2%, they go, "Whoa, we're doing it." Or when things are really poor, contractors will come in and they say, "You know what? I just need the cash flow to keep my workers busy. I'm not going to charge you any fee. It's 0. It can't be 0. Right? So we know that. So don't say it. You just tell us the truth. That's all.
It's the same when the automakers, sell you a car at 0% interest financing, but magically they can't move on the price. It's like, because the price of the financing is in the price of this car.
Exactly.
Yep.
You got to use their financing because they're making money from the financing too. There's Volkswagen or GM. You got to use our financing. Why? Because we're making money from it. So.
Exactly. I love that, Tim. You're just being. I will go back and tell you one more time, Tim. Such a savvy owner. You're so savvy. This has been a great episode, Tim. But unfortunately, we're out of time because you're just too good sharing these stories. And I want to let you. Leave the audience with something that, you've been in the business for quite a long time, and you're making a great living there. What's something that makes you joyful about the job that you do? And maybe people listening out there that are thinking about joining construction or staying in construction or leaving construction, tell me why do you stay in construction, Tim?
I stay here because I enjoy my job, and I enjoy my job because I enjoy my family. And I enjoy my family because I have time to enjoy my family. It's really important. As you get older, I think when you're younger, you get motivated by money. Somebody offers you a big salary, you take it, and then you realize you probably shouldn't have. You give that offer you can't refuse, and you should have refused. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your job. Make sure, they come together. And as you get older, you appreciate life more, and you end up working harder because you're not miserable. Let me tell you a quick story because I got time, I think. Is one of the things I had a job, and it's really funny. I hated my job so much, or I should probably be positive, but I hated my job so much that when it's time to go to bed, I didn't want to go to bed, because as soon as you fall asleep, you wake up and you got to go to work. And the perception in my head was, if I stay awake later, there's more time between now and when I got to go to work, because I hated my job that much. Enjoy your job, and make sure your job allows you to live your life. If you've got children or not, whatever you enjoy in life, you got to do those things. Because, if you think you enjoy your job so much that you don't need to do those things, you're missing out in life.
Very special thanks to my guest. I'm Felipe Engineer Manriquez. The EBFC Show is created by Felipe and produced by a passion to build easier and better. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, everybody. Let's go build.